So the next section converts back. How do I go from a mixed radical to an entire radical? So with a mixed radical of 3 root 14, I have to think, well, what was that 3 when it was underneath the radical sign? So the square root of what number equals 3? 9. So it was a 9 when it was underneath the radical sign. So then I would take 9 and multiply it by 14, which would give me to figure out that 9, what do I do with the 3? Square the 3. So the other way I can write it is I took the 3 and squared it, and then I multiplied it by the 14. So when you have to move something inside the radical, you have to square it to put it back underneath. So if I have 2 root 5, and I want to put the 2 underneath the radical sign, I can square it, and then multiply it by 5. So what is 2 squared?
4.
And 4 times 5? 20. Okay, I give you about 30 seconds. I want you to try to do B and C. Okay, so if we look at B, if I put the 4 underneath the radical sign, I will have to square it. And what do I get when I multiply them all together?
112.
Square root of 112, or root 112. And then with C, take the 10 and square it, multiply it by 6, and what do I get? 600. Okay. It doesn't matter if I have fractions or if I have whole numbers. It's still the same thing. So if I have 3 halves times root 8, I would take 3 halves and I would square it. When I take 3 halves and I square it, square 3, what do I get? 9. Square 2 and I get 4. And if I take 9 quarters and I multiply it by 8, what do I get? What do I get? 18. Who can explain how to do this without using your calculator?
2 squared, 2 squared.
How would I get the 9 quarters times 18? What's 9 divided by 4?
It's 2 point something. 2 point.
And can you do 2 1/4 times 8 by yourself?
Not really. Oh yeah, yes you can. 'Cause you can divide that by 4.
What's 8 divided by 4?
2.
And what's 2 times 9?
18.
18. I can do the division, and then I can do the multiplication. So I could go the 8 divided by 4 first, and then multiply the answer by 2, instead of trying to go 9 divided by 4. Or I guess I could go 9 times 8 is 72, and then try to divide 72 by 4. Which would be dividing 72 in half twice.
So it would be pretty much the same thing, just the other way.
Yeah.
36.
And half of 36 is 18. That's what dividing by 4 is. To divide by 4, half it twice. To divide by 8, half it 3 times. So if I take 40 and I was to divide it by 8, half of 40 is 20. Half of 20 is 10. Half of 10 is 5.
It's kind of like cube rooting it.
Kind of, yep. 0.4 times the square root of 50 would become 0.4 squared times 50, which would equal then the last one, -5 times root 7. negative go inside or outside? The negative would have to stay to the outside.
So will it be affected?
Pardon?
For it to stay negative.
For it to stay negative, because I have to think, how would I go from my entire radical back to my mix? And the thing that we focused on in this chapter is when I take the square root of something, I'm always looking at the positive, the principal square root. So there would actually be no way to square root this and get that negative 5 out. So the negative would stay outside. I would square the 5 and times it by 7, which would give me
Negative square root of
175.
Oh.
And the negative would be on the outside.
I did 5 times Close enough.
Okay. How do I rate radicals in order from greatest to least? What would I need to do without using the calculator? Can I compare 5 root 3 and 2 root 8? First of all.
You probably have to put them all in the entire.
Because which is bigger, root 9 or root 10? How do I know root 10 is bigger?
Because it's a big number.
Because it's a bigger number. So if these were all entire radicals, I could look at the bigger number and that would be the greatest one, right? Okay. Sometimes a duck is just a duck. I've told you my duck story.
No.
If it quacks like a duck, it has a beak, it waddles, it has webbed feet, it's probably a duck. If it looks like an easy question, seems like an easy question, it probably is an easy question. Not every question is going to be hard.
I know the question. What?
3 root 5. How do I write 3 root 5 as an entire radical?
45.
It's 45, because it would be 3 squared times 5. Okay. What would 5 root 3 be as an entire radical? Root 75. Number 3 I don't have to do because it's already done for me. 2 root 8 has an entire radical. Would be,
Root 32.
and then 8 root 2 as an entire radical would be,
Root 100.
okay. So if I put these from greatest to least, which one is the greatest?
5.
5. 8 root 2. Which one is the next greatest?
2.
Okay, so that was 5 root 3. After 5 root 3, which number would I write next?
1.
I wouldn't write 1 next. What would I write?
3 root 5.
Thank you. And then,
2 root 8.
and what's the smallest one?
Root 15.
Root 15. Okay? And the last question. Use the Pythagorean theorem to determine the exact length of line segment AB. Express the answer as an exact value in simple mixed radical form and as a decimal to the nearest hundredth. So if I look at class example number 7, what shape do I have? A triangle. And in order to use Pythagorean theorem, what do I need? I need a right triangle. So I can't use A, B, and C, but I could use A, B, and C, and A, B, and D. So if this is what I'm trying to find out, and I want to use Pythagoras' theorem, what do I need to know about triangle A, B, and D?
Get length B and D and length A and D.
I need AD. So how do I find AD?
It's AC squared divided by DC squared.
AC squared equals AD squared plus CD squared. I'm not sure why you're dividing. because you're trying to do the formula all in one step.
Problem.
So 12 squared equals 8 squared plus,
Trying to find AD, so it'd be 12 squared minus.
AD squared plus 8 squared. So to get AD squared by itself, what method would I use? Subtracting. And what is 12 squared minus 8 squared? 80. So then AB would be the square root of 80. So then I go into my other triangle. AB squared is BD squared plus AD squared. And BD is 6, so there's my 6 squared. What is AD squared? It's 80. It's right here. So what is 6 squared plus 80?
116.
So then AB would be equal to the square root of 116. Can I divide 116 by a perfect square?
4.
4 times what?
100.
What's the square root of 4? This is the exact length of AB, 2 root 29. What is that as a decimal, Tyrone?
10.7.
And to the nearest hundredth?
Yeah, that's the nearest.
7, 6?
7, 7.
7, 7. Okay, your questions.